Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to Temple Institute, Stellaris Invicta Season 1, Greater Terren Union. Last week I watched the prologue for the Greater Terren Union, and aliens came to the solar system, they invaded us, they brought humanity to the brink of extinction. The Greater Terren Union became the sole government of the Earth after they conquered, or should I say, beat back the aliens. And we also got to learn about the governance structures and the military and the society of Earth after that war. And now we're going to part one. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1.
In 2200, after over a decade of automated tests and experiments, the TUS Hawking completed the first manned faster-than-light jump to a distant star system. It arrived in Alpha Centauri over 4.3 light-years from Earth, and in that moment, the destiny of humanity and the Greater Terren Union was made manifest. By the end of the year, the TUS Hawking had become just one of an ever-expanding fleet of ships passing across the boundaries of the solar system and into the unknown. Humanity had learned, at great cost, that they were not alone, and while no evidence of a second invasion by their great enemy was detected, the search for answers as to the nature of the galaxy raised only more questions. Ancient ruins were uncovered on nearby worlds, derelict alien starships discovered, scientific anomalies found, and new forms of primitive life encountered that challenged the Union's greatest minds.
This reminds me of Stellaris gameplay. You have your science vessel, it goes to the nearest star system, either you find a precursor race, a primitive world, anomalies on planets, abandoned or shipwrecks, orbiting a star or something like that. So this definitely, it reminds me of Stellaris.
Face of endless mysteries, the Greater Terren Union was not deterred. In 2206, construction began on a colony ship, one that would transport tens of thousands of citizens to a carefully selected site on a planet within the Sirius system. A year later, on Christmas Eve, these first pioneers arrived and set foot on a new world, not merely as explorers, but as settlers. Even as all humanity celebrated this tremendous achievement, survey vessels operating on the frontier of explored space began encountering signals that were undeniably alien in origin. After months of chasing sensor ghosts, a ship of unknown origin was finally directly observed by a Union exploratory vessel. Panic swept across the Greater Terren Union, and for the first time, the assorted patrol ships and fast attack craft that constituted the Terran Interstellar Navy were deployed to the frontier. As Terran linguists struggled to find a means to communicate, High Marshal Natasha...
The GTU is suffering from PTSD, so it's understandable that they're so scared and worried about what's going on, who are these people, and also deploying their ships. I would call them corvettes because those are the starting vessels you get in Stellaris. Yeah.
Fox, together with the National Council, debated how best to respond. The ship had not acted aggressively and seemed entirely different in nature to those that had attacked Earth. But with the prospect of a second hostile alien race within striking distance, there were those who urged a preemptive attack. In a narrow vote held behind closed doors, it was decided the ship would continue to be observed, but not engaged. In 2209, the means of communication were finally established, and diplomats of the Greater Terren Union were formally introduced to the Algan Republic. While the Pallenian species that made up the Algan Republic exhibited none of the determined hostility that defined mankind's earlier contact with an alien race, differences in culture and governance prevented any meaningful agreements from taking place. In a matter of months, all borders were closed, and the Greater Terren Union began an aggressive campaign to claim and fortify star systems that might become the site of a future invasion. On Earth, xenophobia
and so the solar system race or claim race begins, Gotta claim as many solar systems as possible with as many of your star bases, influence, alloys, what else? Minerals. So yeah, this is the game.
Spread like wildfire, and radical factions quickly materialized in every tier of Terran society. In 2211, several of these fringe groups began openly attacking mining outposts across Union space. The largest of these piracy elements, led by a disgraced former member of the Terran military known to his followers as Romulus Chuck, demanded the creation of a holy solar empire and the annihilation of the Algan Republic, before he and his followers were destroyed by Terran warships over Alpha Centauri.
First off, these pirates, I'll just call them terrorists, they don't know anything about the Algan Republic. They don't know how advanced they are. They don't know how many ships they have. They don't know the economic power that they have. If they just started attacking them and they lose, what then? What then? What's their plan B? So, yeah, the Greater Terren Union had to do what it had to do. It has to suppress such idiocies, because that was idiotic at best. Yeah.
Arrests followed, the right to assembly was briefly suspended, and Fleet Command was formally cemented as the primary space warfare branch of the armed forces. It was quickly expanded to deter further acts of piracy. While these setbacks raised some concern over the pace of human expansion, rising tensions with the Algan Republic and the likelihood that other, potentially dangerous alien civilizations lay undiscovered just past the frontier spurred the Union onward. The fledgling colony on Sirius 3, newly renamed Acadia, was soon joined by others on worlds in the Alpha Centauri system and elsewhere. A network of communication and supply bases were constructed, and as the first colonists were quickly joined by millions upon millions of their fellow citizens from Earth, humanity was transformed into a truly interstellar society. In 1216, first contact was established with the United Clans of Skiron, and more signals were detected by reconnaissance probes each following year. Seemingly surrounded by spacefaring civilizations, plans were quickly enacted to seize as much territory as possible before formal communications could be established. In 2220, one such species was finally discovered. Yet unlike those previously encountered, the Wasari civilization had not yet developed the means of faster-than-light travel, but was seemingly only years away. Located within a strategically important star system rich in natural resources, the National Council and the newly inaugurated High Marshal Lee Martin convened an emergency session. In another close vote, held after a series of emotionally charged debates, it was determined that should the Wasari develop faster-than-light technology, it would represent a clear and present danger to the national interest of the Greater Terren Union. In 2222, Terran Fleet Command destroyed a primitive space station in orbit of the Wasari homeworld, followed shortly thereafter by a coordinated orbital assault. Hopelessly outmatched by superior human weaponry and military doctrine, the Wasari quickly capitulated. The annexation of the Wasari sent shockwaves through the Union. While almost all its citizenry had advocated a humanity-first and interventionist approach, the actions of the National Council were seen as shocking. Questions prevailed over how the Wasari would be integrated into the Union, and whether the invasion of their homeworld had been justified. Some even suggested that by invading the world of a primitive species, the Greater Terren Union had become the very thing it had vowed to destroy. At least one marshal was forced to resign when leaked documents revealed he supported the invasion of the Wasari, only to determine the effectiveness of the Terran armed forces against an opponent that was not likely to pose a serious long-term threat. While the justification and ramifications of the invasion
the GTU really does suffer from PTSD, and also there are some within the council, the Executive National Council, that are power hungry and warmongering. And, I guess it's to be expected from a military government. It's just that I think they have done something that is not honorable, if I can say that. It's not honorable what they did. They weren't protecting humanity. They weren't doing anything in the safety and the security of humanity. They were just doing what they wanted because they can. And that is wrong.
And continued to be debated, the colonization efforts continued. Hundreds of outposts and stations were constructed across dozens of star systems, and every month brought news of new alien contacts and bizarre anomalies. While most alien civilizations seemed unreceptive to human values and worked to counter the Union's ambitions, the United Clans of Skiron, themselves surrounded by hostile alien powers, worked to ingratiate themselves amongst Terran diplomats, and by 2240, a limited technical exchange had been agreed to, as well as a preliminary defense pact. The Greater Terren Union, if not welcomed into some grand galactic community, had, if nothing else, been recognized as an equal of the other powers of the region. The vast emptiness of space that for millennia had challenged humanity to seize it now teems with Terran colonies and stations, alien empires, and ancient stories. Yet as even more distant civilizations are contacted and humanity's knowledge of the galaxy extends ever outward, it is a familiar story that is of the greatest concern to High Marshal Lee. Desperate refugees encountered across the frontier territories tell of an implacable enemy they call the Tyrum that has consumed entire worlds, annihilating their populations before moving on to the next. Terran field agents have spent decades traveling across the stars, seeking the origin of these reports, and their findings have finally made it back to Earth. There can be no mistake. The Tyrum, the great enemy of all mankind, has been found, far too distant for now, but perhaps not for much longer. How they might have traveled to Earth and what has prevented them from returning remains unknown. But the answer might be found in one of the strange alien derelicts encountered by the Union, which, for now, remain dormant. In Stellaris Invicta, the Templin Institute guides the Greater Terren Union into an uncertain future, one you can influence. Every Saturday, we'll live stream our progress on our Twitch channel, and viewers and patrons will have the opportunity to vote on decisions, help name planets, ships, leaders, and more. If you missed the live stream, you can catch up on what happened when the stream is published the next day to the Templin Archives channel. Then, once a month, we'll produce a video like this one, detailing everything that's progressed in the Greater Terren Union's struggle to achieve galactic supremacy. The next live stream of Stellaris Invicta begins 1 hour after this video has gone live. We hope to see you among the stars.
Well, guys, that was it for part 1 of the Greater Terren Union. And yeah, the Union is suffering from the old human symptoms, old human conflicts. The terrorists, the pirates, people who want a different path for humanity. Therefore, they're taking up arms instead of, taking the diplomatic or political stance. They're going straight to arming weapons and ships and going out in space and becoming these lawless individuals who want to reform the Greater Terren Union. But I just don't know how they're going to be able to do that if they're not on Earth, advocating and pushing for this change. Because now when they're out there, people are just going to see them as enemies, as crazy, gunslinging whole people, So, yeah, they're suffering the same symptoms that we're facing right now in the modern world. And luckily, they know how to deal with the threat almost immediately. They don't waste time. They don't negotiate. They say, if you're not with us, you're against us. And if you're against us, you're dead. And that's what happened. they are still suffering from PTSD from what happened during their war for liberation against the, what did they call them? The Trime? Yeah, I think the Trime aliens. And what they did to the Wasari was just uncalled for, really. Even if they did obtain space travel, you know, like them at their level, in terms of, you know, going from system to system, still they would be ahead of them in technological wise, you know, militarily. So they wouldn't have to really attack them and destroy their government and destroy any kind of semblance of order and then, you know, claim their planet as their own. They should have just let them be, see how they do things, monitor them, and then also have some sort of diplomatic communications with them. But because this is the Greater Terren Union and it's a military government, yeah, I don't see how they were going to be able to do it properly. Either you have to be at their equal level or higher than them for them to actually respect you. Now, if you're lower, even just a tiny bit, they will smell blood in the water and they will attack almost immediately. I think that's how their government structure kind of works as well in terms of international relations. If you are weaker than them, they won't give you the time of day. They will either destroy you or they will conquer you and they will control you for the sake of humanity. And if you are at par with them or higher, they will have some sort of diplomatic communication. Of course, they'll close their borders to you, but they'll still try and have some diplomatic communication just to buy time for them to build a fleet and then attack you. So yeah, the international relations doctrine of the GTU is to be expected from a civilization such as this that has suffered from a war that almost brought them to extinction. So, you know, anything that's not human is immediately considered as a threat. It's either you are to be controlled by us or we are to defeat you. So, yeah. Okay, guys, that's it for part 1. If you want to check out my previous reaction to the prologue, I'll put the card right up here. Just click on it and you'll be able to access it. Okay, guys, remember, if you like the video, give me a like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. Bye-bye.